Welcome to Touring the AFC South. I'm your host, Mike Patton, and sometimes we always talk to people that are within the AFC South and people that cover teams and things like that. So it's always good to step outside the AFC South every now and then, and get a guest that knows about another division, but still knows football as well. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in my guest, Nkeshi. How are you doing?
Hi, Mike. How are you doing? Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Now, for those that aren't familiar with you and what things you have done and are doing, can you just give them a little rundown of what all you do?
Okay, well, I am a former multi-sport athlete, playing multiple sports, soccer, basketball, track, cheerleading, and I am a proud alumni of Mississippi Valley State University. I earned my bachelor's degree from MVSU, and then I got a master's in communications with a concentration in entertainment and sports PR. And I was so excited to go into that field because it was an opportunity for me to combine all the things that I love and still make a career out of it. So I then went on to work in radio, and I have worked for multiple websites. Spent 2 seasons with the Washington Capitals, the hockey team. Yay, rock the red. And most recently, in the past couple of years, I was a staff writer for Sideline Pass, which was a website that was really dedicated and targeted toward the female sports fan. I had a column, Nkeshi's Cuties, which is actually my Twitter handle. I then went on to be a co-host for the Gridiron Blitz blog talk radio show. I did that for about 4 years. The Gridiron Blitz is really cool. It's a sports program that is dedicated actually toward women's football.
Okay.
So under the Gridiron Blitz, we covered women's professional football. So I was a co-host on the show for about 3 or 4 years, and simultaneously, I've also been a co-founder, and co-host for a Twitter chat called GT Live Chat. And so you can catch me and my co-host Mike, and so we talk sports. Mike talks gaming, sports betting. That is really his niche. And so the two of us, we go back and forth with wonderful banter. We bring in the fans, and we actually live tweet during the game. So it's really a lot of fun and an opportunity to connect with what I love doing.
Oh, sounds fun. Sounds fun. Now, of course, I know you rep a certain team in the NFC East, which would be the Dallas Cowboys.
You see, I wore my blue today just for you.
How did you become a fan of the Dallas Cowboys?
So this is that moment where I have to wonder, as a female in the sports game, am I supposed to tell the truth about how I became a fan? Honestly, in kindergarten, I was going through this color phase. So each week I picked a different color and say, oh, this is my new favorite color. So it just so happened I was in my blue week, and I'm like, oh, my favorite color is blue. And that weekend, the Dallas Cowboys were playing the Skins, former Washington Redskins. And I actually live in the DMV. So that weekend that I was going through my blue phase, the Cowboys were playing. So I said, oh, their colors are blue. I said, I also noticed they had a star in their helmet. Now, at the time, Kiss was my favorite rock group. Love Kiss. But everybody else kind of scared me, except for Ace Frehley, because he had a star on his face. And I was like, and I said, so their colors are blue. They've got the star. I said, it's meant to be. This is my football team. And I have literally been a Dallas Cowboys fan ever since. Now, I'm tall for a female. So growing up, my nickname was Too Tall Jones. So I said another great Dallas Cowboys. So I've been a Cowboys fan literally my entire life.
Okay. Well, I'm going to excuse that. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
It's okay. I'm originally from the South, and growing up and living in the DMV, trust me, I get all the flack. But we have already told everybody that DC stands for Dallas Cowboys. It's all good.
Oh my goodness. Well, we're going to get into them. With how they're doing this season. They're 3-1 to start the season. I mean, are you surprised with how they're doing, and are you starting to get super excited about the possibilities of this team?
Well, we don't say the P word, so we don't say the P word. And I know that is like probably one of the biggest jokes about Cowboys fans is that every year we say this is our year. What I will have to say is that this looks to be a more well-rounded team than we've seen in the past, on both sides of the ball, on offense and defense. The defense has actually been the surprise for me because they have just been woefully lacking for so long. And they came out with an energy, and of course, Tavon Diggs, getting an interception in just about every game. And I honestly believe that they could have beaten Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that season opener. What I also would have to say about the team, again, I'm tamping down my expectations because, we're just so beleaguered and just long suffering. I would have to say the other person who's really surprising me this year is probably Pollard. Like, I wasn't sure what we were going to get with him. And now Schultz, from the tight end perspective, I would not be surprised if he were to surpass Jarwin for that position. I know that everyone thought, oh, Jarwin, but, Schultz is just really turning it on. And, in his size and his strength and what he's been able to do in terms of flipping and changing the offense. And of course, we always had this belief in Dak. And I also think that Zeke is coming back true to form. And I'm wondering if in some small way, the past 2 seasons have given him that rest that he needed to get back to form. So I'm really happy with the way that my team is playing this year.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, looking at the time, I think that's enough Cowboys in NFC East.
Absolutely.
But we can go ahead and talk about, of course, the AFC South. Of course, the AFC South is not one that's glamorized and talked about a lot. After this past weekend's results, of course, obviously a lot of people are down on them with some of the results. Of course, the Titans losing to the Jets, the Jaguars losing, Houston losing 40-0. I mean, a lot of bad results. But what are your thoughts about the teams in this division and their possibilities, just from an outside perspective?
So I think that the Titans, have really, they're just off to a rocky start this year. Clearly this is not the Titans from last year. Not really sure what's happening with them. It's kind of like they just haven't gotten their footing. The Texans, I think 90% of what they're going through right now really is stemming from all of the issues that they've got going on with Deshaun Watson and not having that stability at the quarterback position. Again, same thing with the Colts. There just seems to be so much upheaval and transition this year that in some ways this season's AFC teams remind me of what the NFC East was about 2 or 3 seasons ago. Just not. I mean, I know that the nickname for us a couple of years ago was the NFC least because we just were all stinking and at the bottom of the food chain. And I honestly, I think that this is going to be a rebuilding year for the AFC South.
Interesting perspective. Definitely a very interesting perspective. I will say this, though. One particular player that's still shining no matter how his team's doing is Derrick Henry. Last season, of course, he rushed for over 2,000 yards. After 4 games last season, he had 376 yards on 101 carries. This season, he has 510 yards on 113 carries. Do you think he can get 2,000 yards again and carry the Titans to the playoffs?
See, you keep using the P word, and now that is just. I don't want to say no because at the end of the day, one team is going to represent. So realistically looking at the offenses and the defenses of all the teams in the AFC South, if any team is going to make the playoffs, it is going to be the Titans. I will say this. Last season, I was so impressed with Ryan Tannehill as a quarterback that I kept saying to myself, is this the same guy who was playing in Miami? I'm like, what happened? And what I realized is that when you move players and you put them in the right fit, I really believe that the way that the Titans run their offense, it was tailor-made for Tannehill. And he has the right weapons around him and he had the right support system. So honestly, I do expect the Titans to be back. I do expect Derrick Henry to have another great season. I won't say 2,000 yards, but I definitely could see him getting up to 1,500. I just don't know, again, what this season is going to look like for them, but it would definitely be the Titans because there's just too much uncertainty and upheaval, again, with all of the other teams in the AFC South.
Gotcha. I'll say this. I expect them probably to get right in between there at the least, about 1,700. But I will say, the way he's running the football, and they're actually using him in the passing game some too, which is kind of interesting as well. Since we were talking about the NFC East a little bit earlier, I would be crazy to not mention a former quarterback of the NFC East, which is Carson Wentz. Of course, they're 1-3 after their first win in Miami. Do you think he can remain healthy enough to carry this team?
No. I can't even begin to sugarcoat that. No. He wasn't even healthy enough to carry the Eagles. I know that in college, he was a beast from his size, his strength. You couldn't pull him down. Defenses just could not handle him. Unfortunately, I think that he's just had so many injuries that he's just being put together right now, which is duct tape. And I don't see him being that person. And I don't know why the Colts thought that he would be effective in that position. And I'm just incredulous at the fact that they even brought him over. I guess, but everybody's got to play somewhere, I guess.
Right. And it's interesting to watch. Definitely. The amazing thing to me was he sprained both ankles in one game. One in the first half and one in the second half. That was just amazing to me. I don't know. I've never heard of that happening before.
At all, And I know this is not the Cowboys show, but do you remember when Dak first came in the league, there was just so much media hype around pitting, those two against each other. And I would have to say, barring, last season's injury, Dak has definitely proved to be the better draft pick. And, and Tony Romo used to play bandaged up, but even then it just, two sprains in one game. But then that also speaks to the offensive line. Like, what are you doing that you are not protecting your quarterback? Because realistically, if the Colts knew that they had a potentially vulnerable quarterback in Carson Wentz, who was injury prone, then the first thing they should have done was shore up that offensive line. And I don't understand what they were thinking, from a coaching managerial perspective, that they didn't make that a priority.
Right. You definitely have a point there, especially with the injury history of Carson Wentz. Of course, we do have to talk about the last two teams in the division. Let's start with the Houston Texans. Of course, no Deshaun Watson this year at all, by far. This so far, I should say.
Yeah, and we don't know what that's looking like.
Right, definitely. And of course, they just took a 40-0 whipping on Sunday to the and Buffalo. Do you think Watson comes back this year for Houston or anyone? And is this just whole season like a setup for David Culley?
Truthfully, I had really hoped, and I'm biased, that Tyrod Taylor was going to save the day. That was really and truly what I was hoping. I honestly wanted to see him succeed. I have truly just been on the bandwagon for Tyrod Taylor for so many years. He was just such a dynamic player. And again, another one who's been hampered by injuries. Another really talented quarterback whose injuries have kept up with him. They cost him, his starting position with the Raiders. He was just, in Baltimore, he was, second string. So he wasn't getting that opportunity that, he really needed to explode. And I just, again, I thought, okay, this is it. And then after they had that first win, I was so excited that this was going to be the year that they were going to turn around. As far as Deshaun Watson is concerned, that is just so prickly on so many levels. From the legal perspective to all of, how Roger Goodell is infamous for just waiting to see what the legal process is going to be before he even makes a decision on a team and on a player. And then it would be difficult, in my opinion, for any team to invest in him because they never know when he could be yanked from their grasp. And that's a financial commitment. And is that something that you really want to do, especially a team that could be facing, salary caps? And because of course, people are looking at Miami, but again, do you want to invest in a player who could be good, but then won't even be on the team long enough to make a benefit? And that's just a financial investment. And at the end of the day, this is still a business.
Right. Exactly. Of course, we're talking about financial commitments and we're talking about teams, and Mr. Urban Meyer has definitely got a financial commitment with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Of course, they lost a heartbreaker, or so he says. It really was heartbroken after the loss. He stayed in the Ohio area while the team went back and, supposedly spending time with his grandkids. Next thing you know, he ends up at a party as they were begging him to come to the party, so he says. And they were trying to get him to dance, so he says, even though he looked pretty comfortable sitting in that chair. But, so it's just a whole bunch of mess there. Of course, the infamous woman dancing on him.
Yeah.
Of course, the other video that shows him kind of touching the other woman. And, of course, he apologizes. But it just, it just is a mess down there. It is a flat-out mess down there. So, to me, do you think, just, putting on your PR hat, do you think that it can be done to clean this up? or is it over before it even gets started for Urban Meyer?
Yeah, that's been a PR nightmare ever since he got to the team. Like, they've been cleaning up messes for a minute. And at some point, you have to figure out how much longer you're going to keep using the broom before you give someone the broom. So let's talk about, I will talk about it, but I want to flip the script and let's talk about a positive. Trevor Lawrence is amazing. That is, an amazing, talented young quarterback who has so much growth potential and opportunities. And I really want to see what he can become under the right leadership and guidance. And I know that Urban Meyer comes, with all these accolades. And in truth, he has been an extremely efficient, effective college coach, winning numerous titles, both in Florida and at Ohio State. However, at some point, when does the league treat coaches the same way that it treats players who are problematic, disruptive to the team, and, always causing confusion? From his, from the whole Tim Tebow debacle to the assistant coach that he brought on, that with all of the racist past tweets and history and comments, to then admitting that he's going to determine, who he keeps on the team based on, their vaccination record. So, it just seems like, I know the sport is called football, but I need him to take his foot out of his mouth. And and be able to effectively lead the team. Yeah, I would love to say that I see this ending well, but I don't. And when the person, what did they say? If you want to kill the snake, you kill the head. And if, fish rots from the head down. And so if the person at the top is the toxic cancer to the team, then you have to start looking at removing the issue.
Gotcha. Now, I will say about the vaccine talk, I get it. I get that.
Me too.
You just can't say that out loud.
That part. I understand, because again, this is a business. And as much as it's great and fun and entertaining for the fans, there are millions and millions and millions of dollars that are being, invested, spent, raised, through this business. And if you don't have players you can put on the field for the product, then I understand, because how are you going to be successful as a business if you're not playing the best, healthiest players? That's the other thing. We don't know what these long-term effects are, and I get it. I mean, we're talking about Carson Wentz with 2 sprained ankles, so health is clearly the number one issue in order to be successful. And if you don't have players who can be healthy because you can't put them on the field, and if you cost the team a forfeiture, those are legitimate issues that must be considered. So it's not that I don't understand him saying it, but like you said, Mike, I agree. You can't say everything out loud. You can't say the quiet part out loud. And that's discernment. And that also speaks to his ability to coach. Is where's your discernment and your thought processing skills?
Right. Definitely. I mean, I would say you could watch this. You could actually watch this Jacksonville team like you could watch Days of Our Lives or As the World Turns or anything of that, because it definitely is a drama when it comes to Urban Meyer.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that that's the sad part too, because I think the fans in Jacksonville want and deserve better. And I think that, this is a team, again, that has had promise, it's had breakout stars, but they just haven't been able to get consistency from the coaching to the players. And I'm really ready to see them step out of the muck, so to speak, and stop continuing to be, one of the butts and jokes of the NFL. I would like to see Jacksonville become more like the Browns. And now for years, we talked about the Browns and everything, but people are legitimately looking at them now as real contenders with a level of respect they haven't had in a very long time. And then that's really what I would like to see for Jacksonville.
Gotcha. Well, we can continue to. Well, one thing I won't do is I won't continue to hold my breath thinking about it. But I will say that it is, definitely want to thank you for your time and thank you for coming on. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. How can people reach out and find you?
Okay, so people can find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Nkeshi's Cuties, KESHICUTIES, Nkeshi's Cuties. And you can find me and use the hashtag GT Live Chat. And Mike and I live tweet every football game. So Thursday Night Football, we live tweet the Sunday Night Football game, the Monday Night Football game, and then for the earlier games, we'll send out chats and little hashtags to get people to tell us their thoughts and predictions for the games and things like that. And so we'll send those out during the day to let people predict who they think is going to win, get their thoughts. But we definitely live tweet during the games themselves.
So let's say, don't say you live cheat. That might
right,
be Belichick might be listening.
I know.
I'm kidding.
Oh, got the shade.
I'm kidding. But anyway, thank you for coming on. And by the way, just to let everyone know, that's not me, it's Mike. It's a different Mike. But,
no, I'm sorry. Yeah, right. No, it's a different Mike. Sorry, Mike. Yeah.
It's cool.
But I have, I just want to say, and if anybody is not following you on Twitter, they are missing out because your thoughts, your insight, not only on the AFC South, but just on the NFL in general are so funny and informative. And it is just really a treat following you and chatting with you. And so if anybody's not following you on Twitter, then again, they're really missing out. And it has just been such a blast over these past couple of years connecting and interacting with you. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you again for coming on, and you're too kind.
Thanks. Take care. I will be tweeting with you tomorrow night.
All right. There you go. And you've been listening to Touring the AFC South with Mike Patton.